All right, let's get started. We're diving deep into ancient Sumeria today.
Always a fascinating topic.
Yeah. Our viewers have been asking about this YouTube video, Secrets on Sumerian Stones, by Trey Smith.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one. Lots of interesting claims.
It is, and it can be a bit overwhelming, so we're going to help break it down and think critically about the connections it makes between, the Bible and these Sumerian artifacts.
Sounds good.
Where do we even begin with a video like this?
Well, I think the video starts off focusing on Ham, Noah's son.
Right.
And then specifically it goes into Nimrod.
Okay, and why is Nimrod so important to all of this?
Well, he's portrayed as this ambitious figure, wants to build a great abode for the gods, and he wants to be super famous. Sound familiar?
Almost sound like the Tower of Babel, right?
Exactly. And the video tries to link that story with the Sumerian king list.
Okay, I'm listening.
And get this. The king list mentions 8 kings before this big flood. And then it mentions a whole other line of kings that come after.
So it's similar to the Bible's 10 generations from Adam to Noah.
Yeah, I mean, pretty close.
Wow, that is a pretty striking parallel.
But the video doesn't stop there.
Of course not. Uh-huh.
It gets into this whole thing about their number system, the Sumerians.
Oh, right.
It says they might have used a base 60 system, a sexagesimal system.
Wait, so instead of counting in tens, they use 60s.
That's the theory. Imagine how different their math and stuff would be.
I can't even wrap my head around that.
Right, and if it's true, it could have huge implications.
Makes you think of all the theories around the number 666, with the whole system based around sixes.
That's a good point. Could definitely have some deeper meaning, if that's true.
So we have these parallels between the king list and the Bible. What else does the video point out?
Well, it tries to compare the 7 sages of Sumer to the 7 angels in the Book of Enoch.
Oh, interesting.
They're both linked to this idea of knowledge and ascension.
Ascension, like moving to a higher state or something.
Yeah, exactly, like rising to a higher level of being.
And didn't Enoch ascend to heaven?
Right. And guess what? The video says the 7th sage, Utu-Abzu, did too.
No way.
Supposedly. There's even this tablet called the Enoch Stone that apparently describes it.
Wow, sounds like an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
A stone tablet describing a Sumerian sage ascending to heaven? Wild.
It's a cool idea, even if scholars debate the authenticity of the stone.
Makes you wonder, though. So we've got kings, sages, angels. What else does the video get into?
Now it gets into some pretty wild stuff. Giants, serpent gods, ancient practices.
Oh, here we go.
It mentions the Nephilim, those giants from the Bible.
Right. The offspring of angels and humans.
Exactly. And it connects them to the Canaanite tribes and figures like King Og.
Wow, I'm already getting lost here.
And then it goes into these serpent gods.
Oh,
It finds them all over China, India, Africa.
Serpent gods all over.
And it links them to the flood.
Really, like a global serpent god connection.
Yeah, it's saying maybe these cultures all had a common origin.
Huh. So the video's saying all of these different figures and gods could be connected.
Yep. Possibly stemming from even before the flood, they say.
Okay, so we have these biblical figures, Sumerian kings, serpent gods all over. Where does it even go from there?
Well, things take a turn toward the occult.
Oh, boy.
The video gets into these ancient sex magic rituals.
Sex magic rituals.
Basically rituals that combine sexuality and spiritual practices.
Okay. And how does that fit into all this?
Well, it connects them to figures like Tammuz, Inanna, Enki, and it compares these ancient Apkallu.
Apkallu.
Yeah, they're Sumerian sages,
Yeah.
often depicted with bird or fish features.
Okay.
And it compares them to like modern occult practices.
So these ancient sages and modern occultism are connected somehow.
That's what the video is getting at. They say these Apkallu had secret knowledge called me, given to them by the god Enki.
And this knowledge somehow survived and influenced later traditions.
That's the idea. It even points to things like Aleister Crowley's drawing of a gray alien.
Crowley drew an alien.
Yeah, and Eliphas Levi's summoning of a Yod demon. And these were both way before aliens and demons were a thing in pop culture. So they say maybe these concepts are much older than we think.
So what are we supposed to make of all these connections? Like, how do we even begin to understand this?
Well, that's where critical thinking comes in. I mean, remember, this is just one interpretation of all these stories and symbols.
Right.
Whether you agree with the conclusions or not, it does raise some pretty interesting questions about the nature of power, and knowledge, and how these ancient beliefs could still be influencing us today.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not just ancient history. It's about, like, us today.
Right. And then the video brings up this whole thing about the court jester.
Oh, the court jester. Like the funny guy.
Yeah, but it's saying they weren't just entertainers. They were used for political manipulation.
Oh, well.
And to kind of, like, mock those who were considered righteous.
Really makes you think.
Yeah, it's like even humor could be used for darker purposes.
Right.
To control the narrative.
Okay, so we've got ancient knowledge, serpent gods, court jesters. What else is there?
Well, next it dives into the remains of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Those cities from the Bible that were destroyed.
Yeah. The video presents them as proof of divine judgment.
Oh, right, because of the sulfur and ash found there.
Exactly. It's suggesting that something really powerful happened there.
Yeah, it's definitely a story that sticks with you.
It is. And then from there, it gets into this whole discussion about the curse placed on Canaan.
Canaan, Ham's son.
Right. And it ties that curse to Baal worship and child sacrifice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy stuff. And it even draws comparisons to modern day beliefs and practices.
That's a lot to process, for sure.
Definitely challenging. But it's asking us to look at some of the darker parts of human history.
And to consider how they might still be affecting us today.
Exactly.
All right, so we've gone from the Sumerian king list to serpent gods to the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Where do we go from here?
Well, from there, the video introduces the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Oh, right. The one who's searching for immortality.
Yeah, exactly. And specifically, it focuses on his journey to a land of the Pleasant Valley between two mountain peaks.
Mm-hmm.
And it says this might be the Ararat Mountains where Noah's Ark landed.
Really?
Yeah, and it suggests this journey might mirror Nimrod's communication with the Lord of Aratta in the mountains.
Wait, so Gilgamesh, who wants immortality, is being compared to Nimrod.
Right. And the video is saying they're both searching for answers, for meaning.
So these aren't just physical journeys, but like internal ones too.
Yeah, like these are metaphors for a deeper search.
I think we'll pause our deep dive here. We've covered a lot of ground, and there's still much more to explore.
There is, and in part 2, we'll unpack more of those claims from Secrets on Sumerian Stones. We'll look at the evidence presented and see if it holds up.
So stay tuned, folks, and keep those mental gears turning. We'll be right back.
Okay, we're back, ready to continue this wild ride through Secrets on Sumerian Stones.
Where'd we leave off? Oh, yeah, Gilgamesh and that whole connection to Nimrod's story.
Right. The video is saying both of them, both Gilgamesh searching for immortality and Nimrod talking to this Lord of Aratta, they're both looking for answers, for some kind of meaning, right?
Yeah, it's like a common thread throughout the whole video, this search for meaning. Like, these ancient stories aren't just about historical events, but they're reflecting these deeper human desires and questions.
So it's trying to tell us something about ourselves, even thousands of years later.
Exactly. And then it goes on to say that Gilgamesh's quest to find Utnapishtim.
The flood survivor in the epic.
Yeah, that's the one. It compares that to the biblical Noah.
Oh, right. Like they're both seeking wisdom from this figure who survived this catastrophic flood. Exactly. And you know what else is interesting? This whole thing about the lifespans mentioned in the Sumerian king list.
Oh, yeah, the kings who lived for thousands of years.
Thousands. Can you imagine?
It's mind-boggling. There's no way people could live that long.
I know. It sounds crazy to us. But the video points out that these long lifespans are similar to the ones in the Bible.
For the people before the flood.
Yeah, exactly. So is it saying people back then could actually live for thousands of years?
I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it's definitely a provocative idea. The video doesn't outright say it, but it raises some interesting questions about time, about genetics. Maybe humans were different back then.
It's like maybe we don't know as much about our history as we think we do.
Right. There could be all sorts of mysteries still out there. And that's what makes all this so fascinating. It challenges us to think differently. And that brings us back to those Nephilim, the giants.
Oh, yeah, the offspring of angels and humans.
Yeah, and the video argues that the Bible's account of giants might actually be supported by these discoveries of ancient skulls.
Ancient skulls.
Skulls with like larger cranial capacities.
So like bigger than average skulls. or like giant skulls.
Well, the video doesn't actually show any skulls. But it implies that some of these skulls that are labeled as Neanderthal or other hominids could actually be evidence of of a race of giants.
A race of giants.
Oh,
That's a big claim.
it is. And scientifically speaking, it's not really accepted. Most scientists agree that Neanderthals and other hominids were separate species, not giant humans.
Right, right.
But the video is suggesting that maybe there's more to the story. Maybe some of these skulls have been misidentified.
Or that there's evidence that's been hidden or ignored.
Exactly. It's like we're only seeing a small part of the picture, and then there's this whole thing about the artwork on those ancient Sumerian artifacts.
What about it?
Well, it points out that some of this artwork shows creatures that look like dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs. But dinosaurs died out millions of years before humans even existed.
Exactly. That's what we're taught, right? But the video suggests that these depictions could mean that humans and dinosaurs coexisted.
So they're basically saying the timeline of history is wrong.
That's what they're implying. And then remember those Apkallu, those Sumerian sages with the bird or fish features?
Uh-huh.
Well, the video connects them to modern-day beliefs in aliens.
Aliens. Okay, now this is getting really out there.
I know, right? It's suggesting that these ancient depictions could be evidence of early contact with beings from other worlds.
So these Apkallu, who were said to have this secret knowledge,
Yeah, the me given to them by Enki.
they could be aliens.
It's a wild theory, but that's what the video is proposing. And it even links these Apkallu to the biblical fallen angels.
Fallen angels. How so?
Well, it's saying maybe they gave forbidden knowledge to humans. That could explain why some ancient cultures had these seemingly advanced ideas and technologies. It's a lot to take in, I know.
It really is. So we've got giants, dinosaurs, aliens. I mean, where do we even go from here?
Well, it's important to remember that, while the video presents all of this with a lot of conviction, a lot of these claims are based on interpretations of ancient texts and artifacts. And those interpretations are definitely open to debate.
Right. We can't just take everything at face value. Like that whole thing about the Sumerians using a base 60 system. It sounds fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
But not all scholars agree on that.
Yeah, and the connection between the Sumerian sages and modern UFO beliefs, it's definitely intriguing, but it requires a pretty big leap.
So we need to be careful. We need to think critically about this. Consider the source, look for alternative interpretations.
Absolutely. But even if we don't accept every single claim, the video does raise some thought-provoking questions.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like that whole thing about the court jester being used for political manipulation, that's fascinating.
It is, isn't it? It makes you wonder how power structures throughout history have used humor and even ridicule to control what people think, to silence dissent. It's like if you can make people laugh at something, it's easier to dismiss it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And what about that discussion of the curse on Canaan? The connection to Baal worship and child sacrifice.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Whether or not you agree with the video's interpretation, it definitely raises questions about some of the darker aspects of human history.
And how they might still be affecting us today.
Exactly. Like, why do some beliefs and practices, even harmful ones, why do they persist for so long?
It's a big question. And another thing that stood out to me was that whole thing about the Enoch stone.
Oh, yeah, the stone tablet that supposedly describes the 7th Sumerian sage ascending to heaven.
Yeah, that one. It's a fascinating artifact, but it's also really controversial.
A lot of scholars debate whether it's even real or if it's been interpreted correctly.
It's a good example of how tricky it can be to work with ancient texts and artifacts.
Yeah.
It's so easy to mix up interpretation with speculation and personal beliefs.
Absolutely. We have to be careful not to project our own ideas onto the past. Look at the evidence objectively. Consider all the possibilities.
And the same goes for the video's focus on Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
The sulfur and ash are real, but the interpretation of that as divine judgment.
Yeah, that's more about faith than scientific consensus.
Right, right. So we're talking about giants, flood narratives, ancient artifacts.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that really struck you in the video?
Honestly, the parallels between the Sumerian flood account on those tablets and the biblical narrative.
Yeah.
The similarities are pretty amazing. They both talk about building an ark, sending out birds to find land.
Wow. It's incredible to think that these stories from different cultures, from different times, could be so similar.
It makes you wonder if they're based on some shared memory or a universal archetype.
Like a memory of a real flood that happened long ago.
Maybe. And if so, what does that say about us, about our need to explain these huge events, to find meaning in the face of chaos?
That's a deep question. And what about the video's exploration of the occult? What do you think about all those connections it makes?
It's a complex subject. It's important to approach it with an open mind, but also be skeptical. There are definitely aspects of the occult that can be harmful, but it's also something that's fascinated people for centuries.
It's about our curiosity,
Mm.
about the unknown, our desire to explore, to connect with something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And whether or not you agree with all of Smith's interpretations, I think he does a good job of showing how powerful these ideas are, how they capture our imaginations.
It's important to remember that history isn't always a neat and tidy story.
No, it's not.
It's messy, it's contradictory, there are always multiple interpretations.
And that's what makes it so fascinating. There's always more to learn, more to discover, more to debate. What do you think about all this? About those connections between ancient Sumeria and the Bible?
Yeah, do you see evidence of lost knowledge or cyclical history
Hmm.
or spiritual warfare?
We've given you a lot to think about, but the exploration doesn't end here. Keep researching, keep questioning, keep looking for different perspectives.
And we'll be back for part 3 to wrap up this deep dive into secrets on Sumerian stones. So stay tuned. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into secrets on Sumerian stones. We've talked about a lot.
We have serpent gods, giants, dinosaurs, all kinds of stuff. Pretty wild.
It is wild. So I kind of want to shift gears a bit and think about some of the bigger implications of what we've been talking about. Like one thing that stood out to me was this idea that ancient civilizations might have had all this knowledge and technology that's been lost.
Yeah, it's a pretty common idea, isn't it? That there are these ancient secrets out there just waiting to be rediscovered.
Yeah, like Atlantis
Yeah.
or the Library of Alexandria. Makes you wonder if we've really progressed as much as we think or if we've lost something important along the way.
I know, right? And the video points to some pretty interesting stuff, like those massive stone structures that ancient cultures built, and the artwork, how intricate it is, and how it seems to depict these really advanced concepts, and the stories about people living for hundreds of years and having these amazing abilities.
So if they did have this knowledge, this advanced knowledge, what happened to it? Where did it all go?
Well, that's the big mystery, isn't it? The video doesn't really give a clear answer, but it kind of hints that maybe this knowledge was intentionally suppressed,
Mm.
or maybe it was lost because of some huge catastrophe,
It really makes you wonder, what would the world be like if we still had access to that wisdom? Would things be different?
It's a really interesting question. Would we be more advanced technologically, more spiritually aware, or would we just end up making the same mistakes, only on a larger scale? Who knows?
So we've got this idea of lost knowledge, and then there's this other big idea that the video explores, this cyclical history thing.
Oh, right. The idea that history repeats itself, that we can learn from the past, but we're also kind of doomed to repeat the same mistakes.
Like that quote, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Exactly. And the video connects figures like Nimrod, who built the Tower of Babel, to the ambitions of powerful people today. And it points out how occult symbols and practices keep popping up, both in ancient cultures and in modern society.
So it's like we're still dealing with the same basic problems, the same struggles for power and knowledge.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you think, are we really making progress, or are we just going in circles? It's a little discouraging.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
But I guess it also shows how important it is to be aware of these patterns, to think critically about what's going on around us.
For sure. If we can recognize these patterns, maybe we can actually break free from them. The video also talks a lot about this idea of spiritual warfare.
Oh, right, right. That there's this constant battle between good and evil, not just in a religious sense, but in like a cosmic sense.
Yeah, and it portrays the occult as this dangerous force that can lead to all kinds of bad stuff. Deception, manipulation, even destruction.
A pretty intense worldview.
It is.
Yeah.
But it does raise some interesting questions about the nature of reality and whether there are forces at work that we don't fully understand.
It's definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
So after all these mind-blowing ideas, what are your final thoughts on secrets on Sumerian stones?
It's a really fascinating video, that's for sure. Whether or not you agree with everything it says, it definitely makes you think about knowledge, about power, about the search for meaning. And it encourages us to question our assumptions, to be open to the possibility that there's more to our history, to our world, than we realize.
And that's really what this whole deep dive has been about, right? Encouraging you to think for yourself, to do your own research, to come to your own conclusions.
Exactly. It's about the journey, the exploration, as much as it's about finding answers.
So after listening to all this, what are your thoughts? What do you think about all these connections between ancient Sumeria and the Bible? Do you see any evidence of this lost knowledge, this cyclical history or spiritual warfare? It's up to you to decide.
There's definitely a lot to think about. But remember, this is just the beginning of the exploration. Keep learning, keep asking questions, keep an open mind, and who knows what you might discover.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.